The Christian Union leadership selection process is very, very important. And how it is done, therefore, will be critical. Number one, the scriptures are clear. The Bible does not back anarchy. A group of people that run without any formula is what is called anarchy. And the Christian Union must not be run that way. It's not biblically right. If you go through the scriptures, both Old and New Testament, groups, assemblies must have leadership. And God already says that He has given some people the gift of administration, the gift of leadership. That's why a pastor is a very critical person. And deacons and elders are very, very important in church. But I have to agree that the Christian Union is not a church and needs to be understood that way. Like I said, the Christian Union is a union, it's a fellowship, not a church. Those people who are in the Christian Union belong to their churches. That's why when you want certain ceremonies, you allow them to be done by ordained people. That's why, for example, if you wanted to have Holy Communion in school, you allow a pastor, an ordained person, to do it, not the CU, because the Christian Union is not a church. It's a fellowship of people from different churches. And that needs to be understood even in the effort of selecting the students. That's why you will be making sure that the committee is not made up of people from one denomination, because you want to reflect the diversity among the CU members should be reflected in the committee itself. And that's why although the school has a sponsor, the CU does not belong to the sponsor, because the sponsor is one church. But if it's a government school or it's a school that allows everybody to come, it then means that it has allowed students from different denominations to come. If students from different denominations come, the place where they all can play a role is in the CU. That's why the patron is not necessarily the chaplain. The chaplain is responsible for the spiritual life of the whole school. And the chaplain, therefore, will be certainly a person from the sponsoring church. But we normally recommend that the CU patron is not necessarily the chaplain. They work with the chaplain, but is not the chaplain, so that the CU patron can be seen and accepted by people from every denomination as with them. And I think that will be important. So the Christian Union, again, I repeat, is not a church. People come from different churches, and therefore the leadership needs to reflect that idea. The danger of, for example, a sponsor deciding to take over the Christian Union, it will be a way of giving a right to the non-sponsor denomination students not to attend the CU, because obviously, remember, whereas the school assemblies are compulsory, the Christian Union is voluntary, number one. Number two, it's only made up of born-again people. So even if you come from the sponsoring church, if you are not born again, you will not be welcome within the CU. So if we discover that the sponsoring church is the one running the Christian Union, of course they are calling it the wrong name. It cannot be a Christian Union, because it was called a union because of being people from different denominations. But if they took it over, the non-sponsored denomination members will give an excuse. They'll be asked by their parents, why don't you attend the CU? No, I'm not from that church. I'm not from that denomination. That's why a wise sponsoring church will not try to run the Christian Union, because a good Christian Union will be assisting even the students from the sponsoring church to become better Christians, to grow, to become mature future members of that church to grow in leadership so that they will end up being better leaders, elders, deacons of that sponsoring church. So it is in their interest. It is in their interest to allow the CU to remain independent of the sponsor as long as they are not doing things that the sponsor does not back. And if the sponsor is a Christian, the reason why certain things will not be allowed will not be because the sponsor refuses. It will be because the Bible refuses them. Because basically that's what we are talking about. But our discussion is on elections. Having set the stage on what the Christian Union is, you then see several things. Number one, what you have established, that the Bible does not back anarchy. It therefore will be important that that you have a committee. Number two, if you are going to have a committee, it will be important that the committee is seen as representative of the Christian students. That's why you want people in that committee who represent every class. If you are from 1 to 4, there will be students in the committee that are from 1 to 4, so that when they are discussing, the people, each class can feel represented in the committee. So the first thing you must do before the elections are done is to agree whether the composition is right. Are we having enough representation within the committee? Number two, you must verify that you have enough people that were in the previous committee who can actually enter into the new committee. You don't want each year to end up with a brand new set of people who don't have what is called institutional memory. They don't know what was done and how it was done. So you want some people who entered the committee in Form 1 and 2 to be, some of them to be allowed to be in Form 3 and 4 to still be in the committee. So they learned a few things from the previous meetings. They know what went wrong and why they should not allow it to go wrong. And they know what went right and why they should repeat it. That's the second thing you must know as you select the students. Thirdly, and importantly, is to understand that really this is God's work. So you want the leaders to be people God has appointed. And so prayer will play a very huge role in terms of the selection process to ensure that the students understand it's not the kind of thing where you campaign to get into leadership. It's a place where you pray that only those God has a place for in the leadership will take it. So that means even if you're not selected, you don't complain, because you also spend time in prayer and you sought the mind of God. Next, if it is really going to be Christians, then you must make sure that non-Christians, people who are not born again, are not allowed to get involved in the process. So on the election day, you must separate people that are saved from the ones that are not saved, so that only the saved ones will be allowed to participate. My suggestion is you allow democracy the same way it was allowed when they wanted to replace Judas. In the book of Acts, we are told what they did was to cast lots. That is through elections. But not everybody was allowed to cast lots. It was only for the people that were accepted as the disciples of Jesus Christ. Number two, not just anybody will be elected. They put a short list and a pre-qualification. They said there's somebody who didn't just join us the other day. For him to replace Judas, he needs to have been with us right from Galilee, right from the beginning. And in a similar way, you cannot do elections before you have pre-qualification process. And that's where the CU patron participates. Whereas the election himself, the patron will not be a voter. But the people that are going to be nominated means the people we will vote over. They need to be nominated by the outgoing committee in advance. Then they are taken through a process. a process that ensures what I've been talking about, that they are representative of the diversity in the CU is seen in the candidates. Number two, that they are representative of the various classes of the Christian Union. Number three, they themselves are mature for their age. They know the Lord. They have leadership. Competences that can help the Christian Union. All that has to be between the outgoing committee, excluding people that are candidates. You need to discuss it with the CU patron to ensure that the people that have actually entered this pre-qualification process are actually serious Christians, such that you don't mind who is elected. All of them are good and capable and qualified. After you have done that pre-qualification process, you therefore have a nomination list, which you are going to present to the annual general meeting for only the Christian believers and ask them to vote. Why are they voting? Because by allowing them to vote, they will feel these leaders are my leaders. I participated. I played a role. I think that's why the casting of lots in the book of Acts, when they wanted to replace Judas, it makes them know this is our thing. We have prayed. We want God to use our voting method to stamp who He wants to be with us to us in the next year. And so since you are praying and you're involved, you believe God is involved, and God will use the electoral process to get. One of the things, of course, you must do is avoid any campaigns. And if somebody campaigns, if among the people who are nominated or candidates campaigns, they should be removed out of the list, because you don't want somebody to come just by popularity. You want them to come by competence, by a conviction from within that God has called them to this work. So canvassing and campaigning should be a part of the process, that in the pre-qualification process should be something that will make you be removed, whatever your other competencies, because your desire for leadership may be such that once you are in, you are likely to become a dictator. And that's something that we need to watch out. The desire for leadership, no problem. But desperation for leadership, that's a very bad sign for who you are likely to become in the future. And so, like I said, once that process has been followed, you now can allow the elections. My suggestion is you don't elect chairman, secretary. You just elect the new committee. Once the committee is elected, now you know the 6 or 7 people or whatever the number who are going in the committee. You now leave them to sit together and elect who their chairman is, their secretary is. Why is that a wise thing? Because again, you are being careful that popularity is not the only determinant of who becomes a leader. You want other things to be looked at. And so the patron, this is one of the meetings you cannot miss. Just like he's the returning officer in the election process, he also needs to be the one who is going to participate in the first committee meeting that's going to share offices, so that by the time he moves away from the center, he has helped them to establish themselves and have chairman, secretary, treasurer, and things like that, and share and then organize the first training for each one of the officers and how the committee will run. I think that's an important thing that you need to deal with. So if you are to run a good Christian union, we must be careful how we put in the leadership of that committee. One of the things that must be agreed is term of office. If it's 1 year, it means you cannot insist on continuing beyond 1 year. It needs to be agreed how long are they going to be. If it's 1 year renewable, again, you know that it's 1 year, but the next one again, you have to present yourself for voting because you only voted in for 1 year, but you can be presented again for another election. Thank you.